Welcome, folks, back to the Bushon Show. What if I told you that it just might be time to start bringing your gun to church? It sounds kind of crazy, maybe, right? For a lot of you out there, like, what do you bring a gun to church? I'm in a sanctuary. I'm in a place that you shouldn't need to bring a gun, bring a firearm. Well, I don't know if you're all on the same page as me, but I think more and more of you are coming around that I believe we are truly in a holy war. I believe that we're not being told all the facts, and I don't think we need to be to really understand, especially those of you who are Christians and can see what's going on in the world, that it just might be time to carry your firearm to church. Now, unfortunately, you'll have to check your local laws. Are you allowed to do it? Check with your church. Are you allowed to do it? Depending on what state you're in, obviously make a big deal. And then you may or may not need to check with the church that you're attending. Okay, it's just going to depend on the laws in your area. But I believe it's time because I think that unfortunately churches all across the country, the people going attending on Sundays or whatever day that you go that you worship, you are sitting ducks. Now, what if I said back many, many years ago, imagine this following scenario. This is something I posted up on Craig Bushon Show. It's a great article about maybe you really should bring your guns to church. Imagine the following scenario. At church this Sunday, while reviewing the list of announcements and upcoming events for your church, your pastor adds, "Oh, and don't forget, on Sundays we have our regular target practice. Make sure to bring your guns. Make sure to bring your pieces to church." Absurd, right? Not so fast. It used to be the American way. For example, in 1631, law in Virginia required citizens to own firearms, to engage in practice with them, and to do so publicly on holy days. It demanded that the people bring their pieces to the church. Somewhere along the line, we have lost this mindset, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the ideas of churches and arms are assumed to be at odds, as if loving your neighbor has nothing to do with the preservation and defense of life and property. Folks, the bottom line is this. You have got to be prepared wherever you're at to defend yourself. We're learning what's going on around the world, what just happened in Paris, and we have atrocities happening across the world, and it's going to be coming here in the United States. It has happened recently. You can look at the Boston bombers at the marathon, things like that. But the fact is, we cannot allow ourselves to be sitting ducks. Now, remember, the idea of Christian society and an armed, skilled populace actually have deep historical roots, folks. Alfred the Great codified the laws of England in the 9th century, often resorting to biblical law, it says, in order to do so. Where he departed from biblical law, the integrity of his famous law code is quite poor. Alfred applied the Deuteronomic laws of the kings that forbid a standing army. That's Deuteronomy 17. And as a result, developed a national defense based on militia. By the Saxon laws, every free man of an age capable of bearing arms and not incapacitated by any bodily infirmity was, in case of a foreign invasion, internal insurrection, or other emergency, obliged to join the army. The requirement encouraged an armed citizenry. I mean, makes sense, right? And I know that some people out there believe that every person needs to at least join the armed forces for, say, a couple years, serve their country. And of course, we don't have that law in the United States, but some think it might be a good idea because it actually teaches people what it is to serve, and at least they would be trained at some level to know how to use a firearm and understand what it is to work on a team and at least have a buddy system. So if something does happen, every landholder back then, back many years ago, talking back in the 1600s now, remember, every landholder was obliged to keep armor and weapons according to his rank and possessions. These he might neither sell, lend, nor pledge, nor even alienate from his heirs. In order to instruct them in the use of arms, they had their stated times for performing their military exercise, and once in a year, usually in the spring, there was a general review of arms throughout each county. Now think about that. That's how strict it was back in the day, right? And a lot of them believed that they had to because it was very tyrannical times. It was we think the Wild West was bad. Back then, there was really lawless times, and you really had to take care of yourself. And communities came together and took care of each other. It seems like a long way a ways from those days, but I think we need to get back to them quickly. And again, not to panic anybody, but the bottom line is we must be prepared in this country. We must understand what the Second Amendment is. We have to understand why our founders gave us in that Second Amendment the right to bear arms, right? And it's a lot of it has to do with that First Amendment. Think about the four pillars of that First Amendment: the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom to peacefully congregate, and the freedom of the press. They put all those in one because it's very, very important. If any of those four get stripped away, freedom itself is at risk. And you're seeing those under attack all the time now. And the fact is, folks, I'm not worried about an army coming from the outside in crashing our shores and with tanks and planes and rockets and things like that. I'm not worried about that, really. I don't believe that we have that. That's far down the list. What we have to worry about is the internal fight that is inside our country. And I could go very deep into how deep I think this holy war really is, and it is a holy war. Okay, and I hope that the churches stand up and they start not worrying about their 501c3 or their ability to have a piece of the tax code and fear the IRS, so they don't actually speak about what truly needs to be said about where we're at in these what some say end of times. The bottom line is, folks, you must be prepared. Heck, even the Pope. I'm not Catholic, but even the Pope said the other day, I put a post up on the website, what he said. He's warning people, he's warning his citizens, the members of his church, the largest Christianity church in the world, to be a Catholicism. He's warning them. So the bottom line is, folks, you better be prepared. So if you want a little history, I put it up on the Craig Bushon Show website. Maybe you really should bring your guns to church. It's also up on Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you soon. And hey, lock and load, folks.